So for our porting, we're going to show you one of the most popular types of porting we've been offering lately, which is the RX-8 porting. Now, we have our own template to do an extension by hand, or to do the intake by hand. But what we've learned is the RX-8s, especially the 6-port motors, they flow so well on the intake side, but they are so bloody restrictive on the exhaust side. And it is very important to open up these exhaust ports, and finishing these can be a pain. Really tough challenge, especially up in this top area here. And for anyone who's attempted this and failed, which is what we learned when we did our original testing when the RX-8 first came out. We cut up some of these to see how Mazda did the porting, and there are coolant channels that go in like a shelf underneath here. So if you just went straight down and ported much like you would the top side of an intake port and maybe cut down just on a slight angle, you would hit that water jacket and this plate would be destroyed. So our CNC porting is now the best way for us to port any RX-8 exhaust ports. Intake is also an option, but it doesn't create the benefits that the exhaust porting does. We will show you the before and after shots of the exhaust port. And again, if this is something a customer wants to send us, you don't have to buy a template anymore. We will do the work on the exhaust port. And unlike the intake ports where we are offering a service where we're cutting the top portion and doing the shaping and the finishing work, etc., and the customer can then do the inlet of the runners themselves or have us do the entire thing, there is no work necessary to do on the outlet runner of an RX-8 exhaust port, because all it is an insert, a sleeve that is pinned in place. There is no work that can be done this direction. So it all gets done from the top. So we're going to turn the machine on here, and we're going to actually show the machine work and then the after of this piece. Okay, so here we go. Notice that very first cut that the machine did shows a much larger and further extended bottom to this port shape. And that's what you need on any aspirated engine, and definitely on any turbo Renesis motor. So that's about the final depth of the line of the port, right here where my pen is. I'm not sure if you can see that well, but that's how far the machine's going to take it, and we'll bring you back in just a minute. Okay, so as you can see, this is a before shot and this is after. All right, much deeper, a large radius on the bottom. This port will be open longer and flow more volume, and it's hard to see on the camera, but we've managed to sort of hurdle over top of that coolant shelf that comes in up in the middle of the port here, sort of radius over top and then go back under here. So the complete size of the port much bigger. There's a lot of material that's been taken out in here and on the sides. And the challenging part is always this inside area here. If you look at the stock one, I don't know if we can zoom in here, but you'll see there's a lot of factory casting messiness in here, and that's where carbon builds up. And I will tell you a true story. We've done a lot of RX-8 engine builds where the apex seals are broken, but there's no missing pieces. They're just cracked, jammed into the rotor. And it's like, what seal particles destroyed the engine? Why are the apex seals broken? How come it has no compression? But there's no signs of missing pieces of corner, side, or apex seal. The answer is simple. Take apart a RX-8 engine that's got any kind of mileage on it, and you will see that this whole top corner is one solid chunk of carbon. What happens is that piece falls out and circulates inside the engine, and that's the culprit for destroying a good portion of the engines out there, at least the ones we've seen. This top corner now is completely smooth from top to bottom, left and right. It's a very, very smooth finish here, and it's going to be very difficult for carbon to sit on top of this little shelf in here. There's no shelf or no step or bottom for the carbon to sit on here. So carbon will just gradually draw itself out and might just stay in this port all the way around. But with the smooth finish and the larger volume, and key here, when you have a restrictive port and lots of restriction, you get heat. And what you want to do is reduce heat. Heat attracts carbon. This port will keep the temperatures much, much lower, and will not only vent out the very high temperatures of the exhaust gases, but will keep the temperature down and prevent carbon buildup. This port is probably going to flow about 35% better than this stock one. It is likely that this is the most beneficial gain that you could do to any Renesis side port engine. In our opinion, much more than the gains from porting the intake. Okay, so we will cut these ports by themselves and deliver the pieces, the housings, back to the customer. We will cut these ports and the upper ports and do the port work in the runners and send the pieces back to the customer. Or you can send all three of your irons. We will do exhaust ports and cut these, and the customer can finish their own runners. So lots of different combinations to choose from. Again, no need to buy a template.